Hello, everybody. Nicholas Pedrasky or Pentachills here, also with Jason Barnett or JadiimJedi.
Hello there, everyone. Thanks for having me on here for this Tech Tech.
Absolutely. Uh, Today, or at least right now, we are going to be talking about Blood Wild Kagusader, which is a deck that the Dragonborn, a group of players that Jason is very heavily affiliated with, is rather infamous for creating and riding to a fair amount of success in recent events. So as you guys can see, I've got the shard base, the whole main deck down here at the bottom for you to take a quick look at, including the shard base, which I'll scroll down. You can take a look at. Jason, would you like to talk about the highlights of this deck, though?
Sure. So this deck is mainly focused on the power of curving Howling Brave into awesome 3-drops. It's a mid-range deck. The 3-drops that we have here are Runir Hierophant and Underworld Crusader. Those are the most important cards in the deck. The Underworld Crusader is really what kind of drove the creation of this deck. It's a 4/4 with a socketable miner, but it's got that deck building restriction around it that you got to have a bunch of different Underworld troops affiliated in your deck. But you get a fantastic rate on this card, and of course, when it dies, you'll get to draw 2 cards and you'll lose 2 health for it. Really good value overall. Playing this troop on turn 2, it's only a single threshold, so it's easy to curve into, and just a very formidable threat. We decided to go with the Steadfast and Skyguard gems on there because that'll give you a bit more defense on it. The deck's already got a lot of really good aggressive curve outs, and just having that little bit of extra defense for the flying troops especially felt very useful on that size of body. Also, talked about the Runir Hierophant here as well. Very important for the deck too. It enables us to take all of the random shin hair that we have lying around, sacrifice them to give the Runir Hierophant +3/+3, and of course having evasion on it by making it so that smaller troops cannot block it. In a lot of matchups, the Runir is a great way to go and race. You'll make a huge Runir out there, maybe even as early as turn 2. I mean, you could just decide with certain hands that you'll just go eat the Howling Brave because you don't need it anymore. And the Runir will just go to town and be able to race against a lot of decks. So in the matchups where you need to be the aggressor, the Runir is one of the best cards that you can have in your opening hand.
Yeah, and you can actually make that decision very easily based on your opposing champion's your opponent's champion choice.
That's right.
For example, somebody like McBombus or Ruby Sapphire list generally has direct damage removal, maybe Transmogrifade, but you can take the risk of eating your Howling Brave there to get yourself out of like Crackling Bolt and Burn range fairly early.
Yep, and that's almost always the right choice when you're playing against the Ruby champions, especially because they have a lot of tough times when you have a troop with 4 defense or greater in the early turns.
You also have with the Runir Hierophant in particular, you have the Munsagi Lily Pads, which are in the deck, and a lot of your one-ofs to enable the Underworld Crusaders deck building restriction are Shinhair. And you can create the Battle Hopper off of the Munsagi Lily Pad and use that to get the Runir Hierophant's buff without even really sacrificing your own board, which is a nice little trick.
Yep, that happens quite frequently. A lot of times I like curving uh, Wild Shard, Blood Shard, and then the Lily Pad. Usually play the Lily Pad before the Runir because sacrificing it for the +3 is better than putting the extra buff on it later. And yeah, there's all sorts of value you can get. You can pull other little tricks too with Monsoon or Wakizashi Ambusher, both of which are tunnelers in the deck, and like to see those Battle Hoppers get sacrificed too.
Nice. We have the reserves up here. You've got Carnosaurs, Relentless Corruptions, Cluckadons, a Graunt's Grift, and 2 Gemborn Prowler up here. The Cluckadons and the Carnosaurs speak for themselves. You're already trying to deal with aggressive decks, which I think you have a fairly good matchup against to begin with, but there are some very fast mono Ruby, Ruby Sapphire, and even some of the Diamond Ruby, Diamond Wild decks are incredibly aggressive, so this can help against those. But what is Relentless Corruption in here for?
So Relentless Corruption is there for the control decks, the ones where your removals are not quite as good. Those are the ones where the Relentless Corruption really shines. Some of the examples would be like Diamond Sapphire Control, maybe Blood Sapphire Control. The ones that have the counter magics, the card drawing, And oftentimes they'll have finishers, for example, the Robomancer, or perhaps the Psychic Ascension, um, or even just using a bunch of Lanapal sites and drawing a bunch of cards. Those are the matchups where you want to have the Relentless Corruption, so you can go and attack their deck instead of worrying about the field, and you can use their card advantage against them.
Excellent. Um, the Grunt's Gift seems like an interesting tech choice. When has that come in for you?
So Grant's Gift is something that I started playing with recently, and one of the cool things about Blood Wild is because it is mid-range, there's a lot of different things you can plug in and make a ton of sense depending on the matchup. In this one in particular, it's mainly for the other Blood decks where they have a lot of spot removal. So Grant's Gift, I like to put the gem that creates a random troop, and so what'll happen is the Grant's Gift itself will make a troop, and then you'll put it into play, and you'll be able to generate zombies that then make more troops for you, and you can have actually infinite troops. It's not large troops, but it is still a huge threat to just continually have troops out there on the field. You could also, if you have, for example, a Runeer that would go to the crypt, still bring it back with the Grant's Gift there as well, and it does still retain the buffs. So pretty nice little tech if your opponent's playing a lot of spot removal.
Which you find in a lot of the diamond decks nowadays. Although they're kind of voiding your troops, so maybe that's.
Yeah, it's mostly for the blood. It's the ones that have the hero falls and the kills. Those are the ones that where it's best.
So is the Gemborn Prowler a catch-all in the reserves? I feel like it's there to catch other Crusaders, both Underworld and Ardent, maybe
Yes.
Runeers, and of course the Dark Heart of Nulzon, right?
Absolutely, yeah. There's a lot of good socketed troops. You named the most important ones for sure, and it's really good for the mirror in particular. A lot of the mirror matches are decided by who gets a Runeer Hierophant out there early, and the Gemborn Prowler gives you additional ways to go and answer that.
Nice. The other thing that I'd like to talk about, going back to the main board here real quick, you have these Might Singers of Ages in here. And
Oh yeah.
this is a split shard deck, and Might Singer of Ages does allude a little bit to a powerful play in a wild shard deck. But how easy is it for you to get to the 5 threshold required to just turn her into a nuts card?
Very easy. I've intentionally chosen a threshold base that's heavy on wild, but we have a lot of dual shard options when you count it all up in total. And it's actually fairly easy, especially when you also add in the Howling Brave too. There's actually quite a few wild sources in the deck. The troop count is very high in the deck as well. One of the weaknesses here actually is Mass Polymorph Dingler, because we are so troop heavy. But it is a benefit for Might Singer of Ages because we have a lot of chances to hit off of that wild threshold ability.
Excellent. Is that why the threshold base at least, is that why you've chosen to go with 3 kills and 1 hero fall as opposed to a more hero fall centric list? Hero fall just being arguably strictly better than kill.
It is. I mean, the kill has easier thresholds, so I like to play where I'm going heavier on the wild early, especially. I usually only go for that second blood when I have a specific reason, usually the Vampire King.
Okay. I think that touches in on most of the things we wanted to about this list. Thank you for coming along and talking about it with us, and I'm sure that we'll talk with you again.